Welcome to From the Beach to the Bar. This is our second episode. My name is Ben Natick, and to the left of me is the lovely Jess Matsuda, and to the right of me is the even more lovelier Sage Lopez. We are the go-to podcast where law meets life. Nothing's off the table. We call it Beach to the Bar because I came from California. Little guy to my left came from Hawaii. Here we are in Nevada, and we're both lawyers. So while we might be at a bar, when we say bar, we're talking about being a lawyer. We're going to talk about a couple of things. One, Tesla has a new robot out. We're going to talk about the legal implications of robots, self-driving cars, things like that. Two, personal injury and criminal cases. We'll talk about some local flavor. Kimball Jones at Bighorn Law just hit a case, not a DUI, an accident with death for $550 million. And the Menendez brothers is definitely something that is in everybody's mind. So we'll walk through it because we're both old. So we remember the original trials. And so we can give you our perspective on that, the non-Kardashian perspective, if you will. And finally, we're going to watch some videos, give you our reactions. They're going to be based off of a little bit of anger, a little bit of robot, self-driving cars, things like that. And that should be our episode.
Okay, Ben, so we've seen Teslas and how it affects car accidents and self-driving, self-parking, things like that. How do you think what they're coming out with a new robot, how that can affect the landscape of Tesla into personal injury?
I mean, we kind of talked about this before the episode. It's crazy to me because you have Ring doorbells and stuff like that, and people put them in their house. And then you read Rings owned by Amazon, and you hear that Amazon employees are just opening up people's Rings in their house and looking through their cameras. And so it's crazy that you're going to put a robot in your house with the little eyeballs, beep, 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 and they're going to be watching you and all this stuff. And like we talked about, say you're getting busy in the bedroom and the robot's there, certain Amazon employee or whatever pulls it up, and then you're Insta famous.
Some people might like that.
Not lying. And here's the thing, the Tesla cameras are great for personal injury accidents. I love them. You know whether your client is at fault or not at fault real quick. So in a personal injury perspective, the idea of self-driving cars and cameras and things of that nature, totally fine with it. The idea of having this shit in your house, though, scares me. But that's just me. What do you think, Jess?
No, I agree. I'm more interested in the criminal aspect of these robots, and I know we had some questions about whether or not robots can be liable for committing crimes, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting take, because I don't know how evolved these robots are or how good the artificial intelligence is, but from my understanding what robots can do, they don't have the consciousness, they don't have the ability to formulate intent, which are crucial elements of a crime. So I know someone was asking this earlier, whether or not robots could be charged with a crime. They can't, at least to my knowledge, I don't know if robots are that far advanced, but they can't formulate the intent necessary to commit a crime. But I guess you could charge someone that owns a robot if they sent the robot to do something. I mean, that could be seen as a deadly weapon, or, the owner of the robot that, I guess, directed his robot to commit a crime could be charged.
Yeah, I was, in the 5 seconds you were talking about that, I was thinking about a couple of things. One, liability is totally open. If your robot hurts somebody at your house, you're probably going to be on the hook for it. And by probably, I mean you are going to be on the hook for it. If robots reach a point where they're driving instead of a self-driving car, they get in an accident, you're going to be on a hook for it. Say, for instance, taking this to the totally absurd level, say you work at an Asian massage parlor and you use robots instead of ladies. Say one of them gives you a happy ending and hurts you. You're going to be on the hook for that too. That's just some of the nonsense that could happen with robots in the workplace.
Wow.
I expected more from Jess on that one, I'm not going to lie.
If I get a massage, is it automatically Asian? Asian massage?
I don't know. If you go eat Japanese food, is it food?
It's Japanese food. I eat it.
Okay. Well, speaking of robots potentially hurting somebody, say they're trying to help somebody and they end up actually hurting them, would there be any criminal action against them?
I'm going to do something first, and then Jess can follow up with the criminal part. Here's the situation. You're under no, and this is something people don't realize, but you're under no duty to help somebody if you see them in distress. So like you see those videos of like people in the river and they're drowning and somebody goes out to get them. You don't have to do that. Like just because you see them doesn't mean you have to help them. Now, morally, that's kind of effed up, but that's the state of the law. One of the things that's also the state of the law, if you do make that choice to go help them, and you F them up in some way, like say you push them out farther, you dunk them underwater and they don't come up, anything. If you go to help and you actually make the situation worse, you are now liable for what happened to that person. Okay, so in a situation where a robot who, you know, whether it's of their own choice or their owner's choice, go to help somebody, say in a situation where somebody looks like they're having a heart attack or they're choking and they do CPR or Heimlich, and they actually do it too hard and hurt somebody, that owner would be on the hook for that from a personal injury standpoint. Now, from a criminal standpoint, I think Jess can definitely give you an answer as to this.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off the whether or not a robot would be liable, there's also Good Samaritan laws, right?
Yep.
A lot of states, most states have these, excuse me, Good Samaritan laws where if you're providing reasonable assistance and someone gets hurt or dies, you are protected to a certain extent.
Yeah.
If it's within a reasonable action. But in terms of whether or not a robot could be held criminally liable for, I guess, furthering damage or furthering injury on someone that they're trying to assist, again, it falls back on whether or not which I don't believe that a robot has consciousness or the ability to formulate the intent necessary to be charged with a crime, so I don't think it would be criminal in nature, but I think the owner of that robot could still be held liable if something happened.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point if you think about it, because like even in a situation where like a robot does CPR and say they like, you know, crack somebody's chest cavity or something, like you would think, well, maybe the owner would be responsible for a battery, but I don't think they would be in that situation, right?
That's tough, man. Because
yeah,
well, if you're the owner and you're directing your robot to perform CPR and then they hurt someone, that's a great debate, I guess. Because I could see it being charged because you're putting something in motion that causes harm. But again, it's a robot.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you're 100% liable from a civil perspective, like
right.
you know, getting sued. But like from a criminal perspective, that's an interesting question.
What about the company? Could you sue them? Because maybe the owner didn't tell them to crack the chest, but maybe the manufacturer.
You always want to go for the deep pockets.
Seiji,
So,
ask that question.
So following along with that, would the company be liable or the manufacturer for the robot?
That's
Is
actually a good question too, because if you think about it, it's products liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
right.
somebody put this product, and this is like a bunch of legal terms. So they put something out there. We call it putting it in the chain of commerce. So they put something out there, and then that thing causes an injury. The robot causes an injury if we use like the CPR chest crack thing. Now, is the robot supposed to be used that way? Is that outside the terms of what the robot should do according to the company? That's, I would say, undecided, but I guarantee you in the next couple of years that's going to come up. There is, like, it's funny, I'm getting a prompt from the TV. Y'all don't see the TV that I see. But it brings up the idea that I believe it was at Disneyland. Kid has like a peanut allergy or something like that, and they take. It was a woman. Yeah. So woman has an allergy. She eats at Disneyland, which is the greatest place on earth. So it's terrible that people sue Disney. Just saying. But she eats something, she dies. So dude obviously wants to sue Disney because they killed his wife. But what Disney tried to do is say, because you have Disney Plus, which has fucking nothing to do with being at Disneyland, but because you have Disney Plus, you've agreed to an arbitration clause, which means that you can't sue us in a court of law.
Oh wow.
That's bullshit.
I think it's just such bad PR on Disney's part to try to skate past this wrongful death lawsuit by saying, hey, because you signed this agreement to get Disney Plus on TV or streaming device, you're therefore holding us not liable for the death that we may have just caused.
Yeah, it's terrible. And that's some of the tactics you see from insurance defense and defense attorneys in general. And that's why I want to reiterate, defense attorneys in a civil perspective, terrible human beings. Defense attorneys in a criminal perspective, totally lovely individuals. Everybody wants one. But when people can come up with a totally diabolical defense like that, that's evil. Like, you hate kids.
So I guess like the terms and conditions wouldn't even apply to that.
No,
I think it's like I think that doesn't make any sense on what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they're taking
It's
they're taking it a little bit farther than they should, and one of the things you worry about is, like, obviously there's a ton of people you can sue over robots. You can sue the people who made the motors. You could sue the company who puts the robot out there. But, you know, are they going to have you sign waivers and things like that? Typically, waivers don't mean much, you know, but you do worry about the legislator getting involved. For instance, you know, you have these situations like in mass shootings where the gun industry has effectively been taken out of products liability. You can't sue the gun industry because they're simply saying that they're protected, and the legislatures created a protection for that industry. One of the concerns you have from a plaintiff's perspective is that the legislature might try to protect, you know, the robotics industry, Tesla, things of that nature, so that your ability to sue them for the injuries that their robots cause, they're not allowing you to do that. And that's problematic.
Okay, while we're on topic of talking about Teslas and robots, I have a few videos for you to watch and react to. And there's one with the self-parking. I think they're trying to self-park and the car actually crashes on the self-park.
Fucking awesome. All right, roll it. Let's see it. Dude wasn't even looking.
That's how fast that wheel was spinning.
I know. Oh. All right, so we just watched this video. I'm assuming it's a Tesla, but like it doesn't have that big ass computer screen. Oh
Yeah.
shit! I have a Ford
Look at the
F-150.
steering wheel. Look how fast it turns, man.
Yeah,
It's like the parallel parking feature.
I better not have that because I'll totally use it. I'm lazy. But here's the situation. This guy's in a Ford truck. He's using the self-parking feature. He rear ends the person behind, or he actually hits the person behind him. He's rear-ended. Couple of things. One, he's definitely liable for the accident. Two, there is an argument that you could go after Ford for the self-parking feature. Three, you could probably go after the software company that created the software for the self-parking feature. Anybody else we can go after?
I don't know, but I don't get. Just fucking park it yourself. Just park it yourself. Like, why do you need a self-parking feature?
I
Some people
don't
just
get
can't.
it.
Some people just can't park parallel.
That's me. That's me.
I mean, we're in Vegas though, and like, how many people have to parallel park in Vegas?
Yeah.
Like, I grew
That's
up in
true.
San Francisco, and you got to parallel park all the time there. But here, I mean, it's not really an issue.
Yes, that's true, huh?
That's too big of a word for Sage.
You know me so well. I was like, I don't
Hip Hop
know.
Anonymous? Hip Hop Anonymous?
As things become more autonomous with these features, and the ability to do the task becomes. All right, so I guess the way I would ask the question, Seiji, or talk about it, say that's interesting. Do you think with all these things that are coming out, people aren't developing the skills they need to do certain things?
Okay. So from the video that we just watched with the self-parking, do you think that having those types of features on cars are causing a lot more accidents because of people not learning to do it themselves, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like if you
now-
think about it, like once again, this is Old Man River talking. Back before cell phones, and yes, both Jess and I are old enough to remember those days. Like you had everybody's phone number memorized in your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
just bang, 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 10, 15, 20 numbers. Now, shit.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the skills, I guess, or the things you lost. with the technology that's come out. And so it is a concern with things like self-driving cars, with self-parking cars, that people are definitely going to lose that type of skill. And in a situation like that, it may lead to more accidents.
Yeah, I agree.
Because now it's not even a requirement for your driving test for a parallel park.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
That sucks. I had to do that.
I know I had to do that shit.
Yeah. Now they took it off, so you don't need that. So that's why like a lot of people just do like they'll just hit the button. I had cousins that would just.
I can't
My
remember
cut-
the last time parallel parked.
At least I
Yes.
learned. I still
Yes.
learned how to do it because.
I actually go out on my
It
way to
gets me.
parallel park sometimes, like just to see if I
still got it. I still got it.
I always get scared I'm gonna scrape my rims.
I guess you got a street park in front of the court. You got a parallel park with this little right in front of the court.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but have you ever gone there?
No.
Yeah.
I think I have, but I think I just had to just pull up.
Oh, just whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no backup. All right. So essentially, we're transitioning into the what happens if you've never been in an accident.
Okay.
Red rum. What's that?
Huh?
Red
What?
rum.
Meow.
Red rum. Red rum.
Meow.
Red rum.
Okay. So speaking about driving skills, in an accident, if you've never been in one, what skills or knowledge should you have?
Okay, so this is actually something I've been wanting to talk about for a while because I forgot about it. And in the consults that I've had this week, this has come up quite a few times. Like, people don't know what to do if you're in an accident because it's their first time. They're stressed out. They literally just got hit and don't know what to do. First things first, check, make sure you're okay. Check, make sure that everybody in the car is okay. Check that getting out of the car is safe. That's always the first thing you do. Once you get out, look at your car, see what damage there is. Look at the person that hit you, see what damage there is. Talk to that person. Obviously, if they're hostile, if they're coming at you a certain way, just get back in your car, sit down, call the police, say you were in an accident, say the person's aggressive and you don't feel comfortable talking to them. Never put yourself in a position where you're unsafe. But the law requires that you guys exchange information. Even if you feel the other person was at fault or vice versa, you both, driver's licenses, insurance cards, okay? Exchange those. If you're in a place that is safe, do not move your car. Get out of your car, take photos before you move cars, so if there's a question about how the accident happened, we can see exactly where your car was. Now, if it's a dangerous situation, obviously move your car if you can. If it's drivable, whoop, get it out of the way, get out, exchange information, then, take the photos you can to show the damage and go from there. What you will find is people will often admit that they were at fault at the scene, and then when it comes time to talk to their insurance company, they're like, oh no, the other dude was totally at fault. That's one of the reasons why when you get to it, that's one of the reasons you need to hire a lawyer, because they factor into that as well. So, after you have done the initial exchange of information, you have a couple of options. If you're in a parking lot, police aren't coming. They're going to say it's private property, right? And then they're not going to show up. If you're on a street, if you're on the highway, if there's an injury, obviously you need to call an ambulance, call the police. Depending on the severity of the accident, depending on how busy Metro is at that time or NHP is at that time, you can wait for a minute. And by a minute, I'd say 3-4 hours. They can come quickly, but at the same time, sometimes they take their sweet ass time. And it's up to you to decide, should I stay here after exchanging information or should I go? For purposes of your case, I would always, always, always suggest that you stay on the scene until officers arrive. But sometimes life gets in the way. Maybe you got to take your kid to school. Maybe you got to pick your kid up from school. Maybe you have an appointment you can't miss. In those situations, I get it. You have to leave. But if you can stay, I strongly recommend that you stay. First thing you need to do in a situation like that, if you're not at fault, is you need to call an attorney. There are many attorneys in town. Sometimes they'll do something called geofencing, where they'll know you were in an accident because of a police scanner or something like that, and they'll send targeted ads to your social media on your phone while you're there. A little dirty, but it happens.
Oh wow.
But yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, technology's fun. So there are ways to find attorneys. Obviously, you got the geocache on your phone. People can give you recommendations as to who to hire. Sometimes your family, can tell you who to hire. You've never been in an accident, so you don't know. There's always Google. There's a million ways you can find an attorney. But when you're looking for an attorney, you need to find the right fit. First attorney doesn't have to be your attorney. What you need to do is you need to talk to that person. You need to find out if they know what the fuck they're doing. You need to know if they're genuinely there to help you or they see you as a meal ticket. And so that's one of the reasons why I always tell people, even though I'm getting nonsense for my slogan now, I always say we get you fixed, we get you paid. It's more important to me and to Jess and to the girls that you're healthy, that you're taken care of. We'll get you paid. That's not a problem. We want to make sure that you're taken care of first and then that. There are some people that you won't talk to them, you won't see them, they're not even in state, and so you're meeting with the case manager and that's it. I can tell you in our firm that if you have a problem and your case manager isn't solving it, Jess or I will be on the phone with you. That's our job. Our job is to talk to you and communicate with you and walk you through the process. And that's what you need from an attorney. You need somebody who's going to walk you through the process, who helps you understand what happened to you, how you can get better, and to make sure that this doesn't affect the rest of your life. What else, Jess?
Well, it's kind of a feeling, right? Like if you speak to different attorneys, you get a feeling of who they are, how they're going to treat you. But it's kind of a gut feeling. Are you happy? Are you comfortable with the attorney that you have? And like what Ben was saying is, if you start with an attorney, you don't have to stay with that attorney until your case is resolved. If you're not happy, you can always call another attorney, get a second opinion, whatever it may be. But you always want to feel happy, safe, that you're respected, there's transparency. You just want to feel comfortable with your attorney.
Yeah, and that's true. And look, I get it. Everybody says kind of the same shit. Oh, we care about you and all this stuff. But then there are different ads or there are different ways to attack it or advertise it. If you look at Demopoulos, and I'm not talking bad about Demopoulos, I'm just saying Demopoulos focuses on the we win, and his suggestion is that he's going to get you paid. Okay. And then you have the contrast to that would be the Hennessy hate ads, where they're simply saying, we're native Nevadans, we love you, and we'll take care of you. Two different styles. You just find the one that works for you. Everybody sees the billboards in town. You know how it is. There's attorneys everywhere. Find somebody you're comfortable with. Find somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing, and stick it out. And if you have issues, contact the attorney. If you can't contact the attorney and you're contacting a case manager constantly, that's the problem.
So say I'm not happy with my attorney that I currently have and I want to go to a different one, and how would that affect my case?
Well, typically I can tell you that attorneys do things called liens. And what it is they say, all right, I did this much work on the case, so I'm going to lien the file, which means I get paid for the work I did on the case. And that's something your new attorney typically works out with them. And by and large, it should not affect your recovery. Okay. Sometimes when you switch attorneys, you're switching treatment providers. That can be an issue, and so you want somebody to help you walk you through that. That's an important thing too. Now, one of the things I always talk about is when we cite a new client, obviously if I'm in court, I can't meet with them, but I always like to try and follow up with them later. But everybody eventually will get my cell phone. If I haven't met you in the beginning, I meet you later, you'll get my cell. You'll have the ability to text me. You'll have the ability to ask me questions. Whether you use it or not, that's always on you. But I want to make sure that you guys have the ability to contact not only your case manager, but also your attorney, so you have an understanding of, hey, this is how the process works.
What would you consider your style and approach of a new client, having a new client?
I think for both Jess and I, it's, look, you see us here, you'll see us in the, TikToks and the things like that. We're pretty straightforward guys. We don't really bullshit. So, Our style is to tell you, this is what you're looking at. This is how you need to treat. When all is said and done, if you do everything, this is probably what you're going to recover. We can't guarantee it, but this whole process will take X amount of months. Our whole focus, laying it out for you so you see how it is, and then you can commit to, okay, this is something I want to do, or this is something I don't want to do. But we just like our clients to be, one, taken care of, but two, have the ability to put on their big boy pants or their big girl pants and make a decision. There's sadly enough car accidents in this town where if you don't want to treat, if you don't feel you're injured, totally fine. We'll talk to you, walk you through property damage and things like that, and show you how to take care of your car. We don't necessarily need to sign you to help you out. We just want to make sure you're all right.
And for both of you, what would you guys think a common misconception is about working with an attorney for your case?
I think the biggest one is people think like we're smarter than they are. And like, look, we're smart guys. We screw around, but we're not dumb. But I think people think if you're an attorney, you're smart. And I think Jess and I have a number of stories that could definitely prove that wrong.
Yeah. Whenever I see these other, and I'm not talking bad about any other attorney, but they all have the ads of them walking up the courthouse steps, and they're in front of these juries, and they're in these grand courtrooms, and half of these guys can't even find the courthouse that they had to look for. Like, half of them have never been in a court ever. And the difference that I think separates Ben and I from most of these guys is combined, we have about 100 jury trials under our belts. And I know that number is, it doesn't mean much if you're not in the legal field, but if you're criminal defense or you're a personal injury attorney, and someone has 100 jury trials between both of them, that's a lot of trial experience. And some of these other attorneys, they don't have that experience. So if it gets to that point, they'll ship you off to someone else because they don't know what to do.
And sometimes it's too late. They've already effed up your case. They didn't prepare it in the way it needed to be done. And those are civil and criminal cases that we've done and that people screw up. There is preparation that needs to go into a case, and you have to know how to do it. I know of one case where it was a personal injury case. Somebody didn't designate an expert. So when it came time to trial, they couldn't testify about half the things they needed to testify. And that's that's rule number one, lay out your witnesses, provide the discovery so that you can get into the discovery. And if you make a basic error, your client is affected. And so it goes from somebody making, there was $250,000 in damages. So you're thinking maybe it can be upwards of $1 million, maybe more, to now they're defensed and now they're paying the other side's attorney fees. Like, these are the errors that people can make if they're not experienced.
Okay. Have you even worked at a law office?
Girl, I've worked in San Diego in a law office.
Oh, okay.
I worked with Chuck, but that was kind of...
Dude, that guy's a retard.
Okay.
I've always been around.
For you guys as attorneys, from working at different law offices to owning or managing your own now, what are your values in your business?
I'll say this. Jess is a lot better at this than I am. But I've worked for, I've worked for about 4 or 5 firms. I've been my own boss forever. But I've worked for about 4 or 5 firms. Been doing this for almost 19, 20 years now. And one of the things Jess has been really good at is getting Jess is really good at getting employees to buy in and provide full service to the clients. I have not been very good at that until, I would say, the past 3 or 4 years. And I will tell you, the biggest culture I value in the firm is that all of our employees work hard. All of our employees give a shit. And they give a shit to the point where they will yell at me. They will yell at Jess if they feel we're doing something wrong. Like, I value that because we want to make sure not only that our employees are taken care of, but our clients, most importantly, are taken care of. And, the more buy-in you have from your staff, it allows you to create a culture wherein we know that our clients will be taken care of. And if we make an error, because guess what? We do make errors, our staff's there to call us out on it. And I think we value that a lot.
And you, Jess?
I agree. It starts with in-house, right? So if you're trying to help a client, you want to make sure that your office is taken care of as well. If they're taken care of, they want to help the clients as well. So I think that's a good base to have, is if you have a great office, great staff behind you, and you're taking care of them, it makes them want to see our office flourish as well. So I think that's a good base to have, is a great team.
Okay, so speaking of...
That's before you were born,
I
Dana.
know.
So speaking of local attorneys, there was a big case. Mr. Jones, his law firm just settled a big personal injury case. You want to tell more about?
Okay, that was Kimball Jones at Bighorn Law. And actually, he didn't settle it. He took it to trial. And I got to tell you, this dude's smart. What happened was, it was an accident that led to death. So somebody died. And the insurance company was USAA. And USAA paid the policy as to the policyholder, which was, I think it was grandma. But grandma wasn't driving. It was grandson who was driving. And so all the releases, everything were signed as to grandma. They paid the money as to grandma. They forgot to include grandson in the release. So what that means is that they were allowed to sue grandson. Now, USAA had a duty to defend grandson in the lawsuit, and they didn't want to settle with Bighorn. Totally fine. However, when you don't settle, when you go to litigation, you do something that's called open the policy. And so we have situations where, say, the standard policy or the lowest policy in the state of Nevada, we call it a 2550. And what that means is, for every accident, an individual can get $25,000. If there are multiple people, the person's on the hook for a total of $50,000. Okay? When you refuse to give that money, when somebody says, give me your policy limits, and then they say no, the USAA says no, in that situation, their policy becomes open if you run through a couple of legal hoops and follow, use the right language and things of that nature. There is, a little bit to making the sausage I'm not going to get into here. But when you open that policy, that means whatever you sue the individual for, the insurance company can be on the hook. So Kimball Jones, he took it to trial, and he convinced the jury that there was bad faith on the part of USAA, which opens them up to punitive damages. And the jury found that there were $50 million in actual damages, and then they added $500 million, or $500 million, in punitive damages. What's funny is the defense technically, this isn't their client because they already paid out, but defense still argued, maybe we give them $7 million and call it a day. Now, just because you hit that amount, which is an amazing amount, doesn't mean you're going to get that amount. There's a bunch of steps afterwards that have to happen. But good for Kimball for hitting that case. Good for him for being able to read the release, understand the release, and know that there was some exposure on the part of the kid. But he did a really good job, and that's what I talk about. When you are hiring an attorney, find out what they know. Find out that they have the ability to read through a release, see that a person isn't included, and can continue the litigation in your factor. I mean, that's a great hit, right?
Oh, yeah. But it doesn't happen often.
No.
And it's a huge number, but typically when you get a number like that, parties will come to some kind of an agreement and basically saying, we'll agree to pay X amount if you guys waive your right to appeal, because if that stands as it is, $550 million, it's going to be appealed.
Oh, yeah,
It's gonna
100%.
be stuck in the court system for ostensibly years.
Yeah, and
So
one
that
of the
person's never
things...
going to see it.
Yeah, one of the things they talk about is punies or punitive damages are only supposed to be 3 times actual damages. So technically, 3 times 50 million, he's only supposed to get 150 million. So he's looking at 200 million. So the law has already capped him at 200 million. And so that $550 million, they've already taken 350 off of that. But after any big verdict like that, there's something called a mandatory settlement conference or arbitration. And what it is you try to talk to the other side and reach an agreement. And the courts force you to do that before they give you the ability to appeal that decision.
So, when you get a big payout like that, how long what's the process of getting paid or receiving that amount on a big case like that?
Years.
Yeah. Years.
And here's how it works. Like, interest accrues. So, like, that big number can grow. So I don't want it to make it seem like, but at the same time, y'all got bills. You know what I mean? And so that's why there's kind of an incentive to settle. Like, on a case like that with $550 million, I bet you they'll walk away at $100 million or less. You won't hear about it because it'll all be confidential.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be $100 million or less. And, to save people the time and the heartache of having to further the process. Appeals aren't cheap, and it's expensive and it lasts a long time. Now, Kimball's also entitled to 40% of whatever the recovery is. I mean, to be fair, I don't know his retainer. I mean, some of those guys go up to upwards of 50, which to me is a little greedy, but whatever. I don't think he's there. But so even, 40% of 100 mil is still $40 million.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Who determines what the punitive damage is in the terms of the overall amount?
Well, the question as to if punitive damages is allowed is up to the court. So the judge decides if there's bad faith. The judge decides if punitives can go to the jury. And then the jury is the one who decides the actual damages and the punitives.
Maybe we can talk. I feel like you kind of went off topic when we were talking about people when they first get into an accident.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can we say, like, when they come into our office, like, what do they expect as far as they get into the accident, they exchange information, they find an attorney, they come in, they sign up, and then
First thing you do is you'll get a call from property damage. So you'll get a call from one of our people to handle your car, and you'll get a call from somebody to handle your body. It's two different tracks. People are, where you lose clients in the beginning is usually in the property damage, because in this town, you really do need to drive. Ubers are expensive. Like, I Ubered somebody to the office, and what was it, like $80?
Yes.
Like, that was nuts. And it wasn't that far. It was just like surge pricing or something like that. It was insane.
Yeah.
If y'all saw my Uber bills over a month, and I don't even get in an Uber. They're rough. But yeah, so that's the process. We want you to get your car back as soon as you can. We want you to get in to see if there in fact is injury, and if there is, to treat. And we monitor you for your treatment. And once your treatment's done, then we wrap everything up. We send out what's called a demand to the insurance company, and we say, hey, pay us. And if they pay us, great. And if they don't, then we have to go to litigation.
And how long do you think it would take for?
It all depends on the dollar amount. We can get you out of there as quickly as,
A few months.
2 to 4 months on an easy case. On an expensive, involved treatment case, you could be there 6 months easy. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things we definitely wanted to talk about too is some of the local criminal stuff. We've done a lot of personal injury, which, to be fair, we prefer to. But we did want to talk about Telus a little bit, right?
Right.
Okay. So, Jess, explain to everybody what the Robert Telus case is about.
So here in Las Vegas, this was a very high-profile case because Robert Telus was a politician, and he was accused of killing this reporter for doing a piece on him. Basically, it was an article that wasn't too favorable to Mr. Telus, and it was alleged that Mr. Telus basically killed this reporter for doing that article.
And then a couple of things. One, I think he was the public administrator, right?
Yes.
I don't even know what the hell that is. But that's, yeah, but I think he was the public administrator. Second part, he was an attorney. So remember that part we talked about attorneys can be stupid? Here's an example of that. And then, and tell me if I'm wrong, like, because I followed a little bit, but not as much as other people. Like, Tellis drove his car to Gurman's house, and then he had a disguise on, and he got real stabby with Gurman, and poor Jeff died.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And then he gets back in his car and he drives to his house.
Right. And I think Metro had camera footage of him around Gurman's house, and then when he got back home, so they pieced it together, the time frame of when the stabbing occurred to when he left his house and came back. But I believe everything was on camera, right?
Yeah, and then didn't he try to hide the Nikes in his couch?
Yeah,
and they cut them up and stuff?
I think he cut up his shoes and the clothes that he was wearing, but Metro still found it in his house.
And one of the articles, because it was a series of articles, right? One of the articles was about him like sleeping with an employee or something like that.
Right.
And then he's married, so obviously that's an issue. But his wife's still with him, right?
My understanding was yes, but I thought she filed for divorce. I'm not sure.
Oh,
when
did
the
she?
case started, I thought she did, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But when this happened, yeah, they were still married. I think he had 2 kids.
Oh, that's a shame. But so poor Jeff dies. This attorney gets arrested, and I think he just got sentenced finally yesterday, right?
Right.
And what did he end up getting?
I think he got. I thought it was 26.
No.
On the bottom.
It was 28. The only reason I know is because he had 2 credit. So he has 26 to
Okay,
serve.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 26 number he got on the bottom is basically the
28 on the
lowest amount. 28 is the amount of time he has to do before he's eligible to hit boards. What we mean by boards is before he's eligible to go to the parole board, he has to serve at least 28 years.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, if you followed the case, and this is why I say that attorneys aren't smarter than anybody else, like, everything was on video, or at least enough was on video. The evidence was found either at his house, with the exception, I think, of the murder weapon, right? They never found that?
Correct.
And the guy's a bit of a narcissist, I think, to say the least. If you watch, he's still, poor Jeff's family was there during sentencing, and he's speaking to them directly, saying he didn't commit this crime. I mean, it's like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, at least show some compassion for this family. It was rough. But I wanted to talk about the case, one, from the perspective of, you know, not all lawyers are smart, but also from the perspective of poor Jeff. You know, he didn't deserve this to happen to him. And finally, just because not only is it topical, but the attorney work in that case was quite good on both sides.
Right.
Christopher Hamner was the DA. His cross of Tellis was perfect.
Right.
Fair to say. He pointed out all the inconsistencies in Tellis's statements.
Yeah, and Chris Hamner we've dealt with for years, and Pam Werkerly was the other chief deputy DAs on the case, and they are 2 of the best DAs that we have in the county. And likewise what Ben was saying, the defense side, we know quite well. They're 2 of our friends, Bob Draskovich and Mike Horvath, and they're very well regarded as defense attorneys. So it was kind of a really interesting trial, because you have 4 great attorneys in this case, and it's a very high profile case. A lot of interesting details, and it was just a very interesting case here in Las Vegas.
And it was textbook on not only cross-examination of a defendant, but cross-examination of officers, challenges to the introduction of evidence. It was an excellent trial. To be fair, dude, the jury should have been out like 3 minutes. I thought the evidence was that strong, but Robert Draskovich and Horvath did such an excellent job. He kept that jury out 3 days. That's huge.
That's very, very amazing for a case like this, where it should have been an open and shut case, and it doesn't go towards the DA's case or their ability to try a case. It's just sometimes when you do a jury trial like this, you never know what the jury is harping on. They could be looking at something that has no relevancy to the case itself, but for some reason they were stuck on something, and it took them 3 days to ultimately return a verdict, which is very
true.
surprising.
That's true.
Am I doing better?
You are.
You are.
What gets me excited? I'll tell you what gets me excited.
Nipple clamps and
Nipple
fantasy football.
Crab kicks and football. That's what Maryland does.
Okay, okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hold on.
By the way, I just want to point out, you can put this in or keep it out, whatever. But like, it's kind of awkward that like both people to my right and left have really, really good hair, and I'm bald.
Lucky I'm not sitting over there.
Yeah, this sucks.
I wonder if we should get like a like a
A
U.
wig?
No, like a U.
Oh, no,
like,
not bad. A wig.
chair like
Oh wait.
for
Fuck
us
you
to be
guys.
sitting, 'cause I feel like
Be like Ben
this way is,
Affleck
like,
with
a
the
little
toupee.
different,
You get
but-
like a very curly.
The next
like,
thing I want to get is a booth.
A booth?
Like I want to find. I've been trying to find like a.
Oh, like at a diner type booth where
Yeah,
you're
but-
facing each other?
Like a really cool one that was used somewhere.
like
and-
Seinfeld.
You know where you should look, but I doubt they'll have them, is what's that fucking steak joint over by the Sahara that's been around forever? It's got like the leather
Yeah, I know what you're talking
golden
about.
steer. Is
Yeah,
that it?
Golden Steer,
Yeah. If you could get those booths.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
something
peppermint.
like that. Like it just, and I want to put it in somewhere else, or we have like just a different set.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
like
So it's
a
like you're
cool-
just discussing shit over coffee.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Jerry Seinfeld.
But
I just feel
naked.
like it's
Tarzan
a
Cup.
little
Whoa.
awkward, like this position. Like I can't, like I'm like, you know, I feel like we're not. But
If you were taller, you wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah.
If you had nicer hair, it would be a problem.
Oh, wow. Fuck you both. All right.
Okay, so this is a question for you, Jess and Ben. So, do you guys follow cases like people follow sports, for example, or you know, like do you see a case and then you're like, oh, you get excited about a fact of a case, or and you want to try?
I'm gonna
So
let
you
Jess
do
go
something
first
like
because
that?
I'm gonna let Jess go first on this one because I have like a lot of opinions.
Yeah, I generally I don't follow a lot of the cases that are in the news just because we see this every day. Speaking for myself, you see it every day, you live it, you're kind of just numb to it, so it's not really exciting. With that said, I do still like to watch the serial killer stuff on Netflix and all those shows, but generally not. I don't typically follow a high-profile case if it's in the news. So.
And see, I'm totally different. Like I will follow local cases. Here's the thing, man. Attorneys, by and large, are all haters. Okay, and so every attorney wants to see and think like, oh, I'm better than that guy. And so you watch these things thinking like, oh, is this guy better than me? And to be fair, I had to try to overcome that. I think I have. But I like to watch two types of cases. I like to watch ones where people like Bob and Mike are trying a case, or you know the Fiore case as well. Stamped is a friend to me, and he did well with what he had. But you also want to watch the really, really bad cases, and the reason you want to watch them is to just see how people think and how people are going to attempt to defend somebody. And so it's you watch the good ones to learn, and you watch the bad ones to see a train wreck. But yeah, I do keep track of a lot of them just because I want to see where I'm at, see where I fall.
Okay, so going off the topic of following cases, since you guys are, you know, a little older than, you know, maybe my grandpa. No, just kidding.
I'm not even older than your mom.
Have you guys followed along with the Mendez, or what is your thoughts about the original Mendez trial of the Mendez brothers?
What year was that? 92, 94?
Dude, I don't. Yeah, it was probably like 93, 94. It was right around the OJ time.
OG was 94,
That's
I think.
old.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I know, because that was right before I went to UCLA. The like White Bronco with Al Collins, that was
They're old.
94.
Was OJ after Menendez?
It was probably right around the same time.
At the same time?
But there were actually there were two original trials. Okay, there's the first trial, there was a mistrial, and what that means is the jury couldn't come to a verdict. And then what happened is the DA pulled some dirty tricks, and they got certain things excluded. And what they got excluded was the idea that Dad's name was what? Jose?
I don't remember the dad's name.
Dad, you know, supposedly molested the boys, and so that was a big part of the defense in the first trial that led to a mistrial. In the second trial, the judge, in his opinion, cleaned it up by not allowing them to discuss the molestation angle in order to defend their case, which, to be fair, as soon as you take that out, they're going to get convicted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's two brothers. They killed their mom, their dad, took all their money and spent the bejesus out of it. Jess actually got me a card years ago. There's a basketball card. I think it's Mark Jackson when he's on the Knicks, right?
Yeah.
And if you look, he's on the court, and in the background, you can see the Menendez brothers in the front row. And that game was shortly after the parents were killed.
Correct.
Yeah, and so we're wrong. Menendez was 89.
89.
Yeah. I was a freshman in high school. Where were you?
Oh my God, I was in 4th grade.
That's not true.
89. I was 9. How
Yeah.
old are you when you're 9?
I don't know.
What
You're
grade?
9 when you're 9.
What grade are you in when you're 9?
No, you're
5.
See, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
4th grade.
Damn.
Damn, you're old.
I was in ninth
high
grade.
school?
I'm 5 years older than you jerk.
Oh
I
yeah.
wasn't even a thought.
But one of the
Or you
things.
got held back. I don't know.
One of the things I had a problem with in the original trial that hasn't been discussed is there was an attorney, and I want to say her name was Leslie Abramson, but I could be wrong. I just remember she had really bad perm, and she was blonde. But she made the trial more about her than defending the boys, and I was like, you did a disservice to your client, and that was, me as a freshman not knowing crap. I felt that way about the case. But, I'm right. It is Leslie Abramson. And look at that hair, man. Oh, it's awful.
Jeez. Looks like ramen
Yeah.
noodles on
Okay,
her
don't
head.
be hating.
I'm just saying, like, that lady scares her grandkids.
But I think they're
wanna eat
trying
ramen
to. I think
But-
they're trying to do something to get them out. as
They're,
well.
they are, so they've been, 89 to, that's 11 and 20. They've been in for like 35 years, give or take, right?
What was the initial sentence?
Life without, LWOP, life
Was
without
it
parole.
initially death and then they
No, I think it was always LWOP. So that's life without parole. But there is Kim Kardashian is definitely involved. And I think the Innocence Project is, and I'm trying to think, Rosie O'Donnell. She loves these guys too. Like all these people are trying to get them resentenced. There is a progressive district attorney in LA, so he is or was considering it. So that's why it's topical to the news today. Having seen the case, having remembered the case, like there definitely were some issues, and especially with the judge hamstringing the defense in the second trial where they were found guilty. It wasn't a fair fight. I think it's fair to say. It's unquestioned that they killed their parents, but the why is 90% of all trials. Why'd you do it? And so, I mean, it's a good thing that they're getting the chance. Like I said, I think the attorney involved in the case made it more about her than she did defending the brothers. But at the same time, the judge kind of hamstrung her defense. And that's one of the things people always talk about when it comes to high-profile cases is, that attorney really messed up. And what people don't realize is you played the hand you're dealt, right? I mean, I recently had a case where a gentleman impregnated his 12-year-old stepdaughter. She kept the baby, and so the baby was born, and there's this magical thing called DNA tests, and my lovely client was the father of the child. So from a defense perspective, if your client wants to go to trial in a situation like that, you don't have a lot to work with. Having sex with a child under the age of 16 is a crime. Under the age of 14 is an additional crime. And when you have this lovely piece of evidence walking around, who was a cute kid, by the way, the kid was beautiful. The baby, not the 12-year-old. The 12-year-old too. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but it was a cute kid. There's walking evidence of guilt right there. So from a defense perspective, there's not a lot you can do. And so as to Leslie Abramson, I have a feeling that might be the case, that she didn't have a lot to work with. But she really did focus on herself, I think, more than defending the boys.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. When the judge excludes a mitigating factor, such as maybe these guys are getting molested by their parents, that's a huge, because it takes it out of just straight murder, because they're just jackasses and they kill their parents for their money.
Yeah.
Or, hey, they lived through years of physical abuse, sexual abuse, and they just got to a point where they snapped, they didn't know what to do, this was their only out.
Yeah.
I think if a jury heard that, it definitely takes it out of the premeditated first degree murder. I'm just going for your money to I was sexually abused for so long I had no out, and this is why I did it.
Yeah, and I mean, sad to say, the fact that they were molested humanized them. You know, it makes you feel for these people who killed their parents.
Right, and the reason why it's such a big topic now is because Netflix just came out with, I think it's called Monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the #1 show on Netflix, and I think the LA County Sheriff said that they're going to reopen and look at the case again because of this new Netflix show that everyone's talking about.
It's getting a lot of attention.
It is.
But speaking of, I guess, murder, is there a different term for, or is there a difference between manslaughter and murder in the legal terms?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of legal, manslaughter, means that, very basic definition is that you didn't mean to kill him. Fair?
Yeah, so manslaughter could be intentional, it could be negligent, it could be vehicular. So it depends on how someone dies and someone's action that caused it. If someone's in a crash and there's no drugs, no alcohol involved, but it was basically negligent driving. Say the person was speeding a little bit or they took a turn where they shouldn't have and someone ultimately died. Typically that person's charged with vehicular manslaughter, which is a misdemeanor.
Yeah, crazy enough. Like the most you can do in that situation is 6 months in jail.
6 months in jail, $1,000 fine. That's the most you can get for accidentally killing someone in a vehicle. Now, if there's drugs or alcohol involved, then it bumps it up to a felony status where it could be, you're looking at 20 to life on certain cases if it's a vehicular manslaughter case with drugs or alcohol.
Okay, you can't have a situation too, right? Where like, say, you and a guy are jawing back and forth and you hit him in the face and he falls down and hits his head and dies. Like you didn't mean to kill the guy, you just meant to hit him. That's probably going to be manslaughter. Because in that situation, it was intentional. You meant to hit him, but you did not mean to have him fall, hit his brain, or hit his head, brain hemorrhage and dies.
If someone dies over a negligent or a reckless act, manslaughter. Now, if you're planning to kill someone, and if you intentionally do it, classic ones are poisoning, laying in wait, those are going to be first-degree murder charges. So if you intentionally try to kill someone, you're going to be charged with murder. There's a big distinction on the intent, and it goes back to the robot issue that we're talking about. Is intent is a big part of law. It's how you're charged with a crime, your intent. And we can't really establish intent from an AI robot. We don't know if they're capable of formulating the intent necessary to commit a crime. But when we're talking about the difference between murder and manslaughter, intent is huge. If it's an accident, manslaughter. If you intentionally try to kill someone, you're going to be charged with murder.
Yeah. Now, and there is a difference. There's something called heat of passion. There's first degree, second degree murder. First degree murder, you're waiting, you're poisoning, you're doing things, you're planning the murder. Heat of passion is you walk in, somebody's banging your wife, you kill him. That could be second degree murder.
Yeah.
In the case of Tellis, even though he went there with a knife and all those things, I think he was convicted of second degree. So what that suggests is he didn't go there with the intent to kill him. However, he had the knife on him, and him and Gurman got in some form of altercation, and he felt the need to kill Gurman. So that's why it was second degree as opposed to first. He wasn't laying in wait. He didn't necessarily, or they couldn't prove that he intended to kill him. They can just prove that he went over there to confront him. That would be my guess.
What are the differences between first degree and second degree?
Well, it's that idea of heat of passion versus,
It goes back to intent as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to Home Depot and you buy a shovel and you buy rope,
Zip ties, good old zip ties.
Zip ties,
Yeah.
and you have this 2-week plan or a month plan, or however long you're planning it, to kill someone, then the state or a prosecuting authority can show that you premeditated, you thought about this, you actually took steps to further this act, and then you kill someone. That's going to be first degree. That's premeditation. The difference between second degree is kind of like what Ben said, is you basically commit a murder, but you didn't really plan on it. But your actions were so egregious or reckless that you could have reasonably expected someone to die. That would be charged as second. But it's kind of I guess a catch-all. If it's not premeditated, it's going to be second here.
Yeah.
In Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
find myself looking at the screen too much as opposed to the cameras.
I've been looking at the screen. I can't even see the camera.
Okay, so while this is getting plugged in because I got unplugged somehow, since we're talking about like premeditated murder and like first or second degree murder, since we're a podcast and there's a shit ton of like true crime podcasts and shows like Monsters or How to Get Away with Murder or You, and they all talk about like basically how to get away with murder. Like, do you guys see that there's more things, like more cases that are popping up around it, or maybe it's changing?
Kind of like copycat
Yeah.
killers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or just people having more insight on how to kill somebody.
This thing's glitching.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, I just didn't know if you knew.
It's giving me a seizure.
So, Seiji, I guess what I would say is ask, like, so do you think with all these true crime podcasts and all that stuff, are people getting better at murder? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Should we just go now, I guess? Yeah.
I think we can. Cameras are fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So going along with like a lot of true crime podcasts coming up now, do you think that people are becoming better at committing crimes? you think?
Yes.
Have you seen, I guess it was like, have you seen a difference in like people becoming smarter in the ways, I guess? I guess it.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but if they are, they're not getting caught. I mean, if they are, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think the influx of all these true crime and serial killer movies and specials and documentaries, I don't think people are getting smarter, client-wise
No.
or defendants.
I mean,
I feel
my
like if
my
they were getting smarter,
Yeah.
I guess you could say you wouldn't have a job.
I will say that my wife watches these shows religiously, and then she'll tell me like, I just try to learn how to kill you better, which somewhat concerning. But like you both said, I always say in terms of the criminal aspect of our job, if our clients were smart, we wouldn't have a job. People in the heat, it's kind of like when you get in an accident and you get out of that car, you don't know what's going through your head. You're just like, holy shit, what just happened? And you're just frazzled. Sage should know, she's been in a couple of accidents.
Okay.
But I think when you actually commit a crime, unless you're like totally savvy serial killer guy, like you're just like, holy shit, what just happened? What did I do? You're not thinking about like, okay, I got to clean the scene. You're like, I got to get out of here. I got to go. And so I don't think people are savvier. One of the things I find with a lot of those true crime podcasts is they feed you the information they want you to have. They don't necessarily feed you all the information.
Yeah. I think they pick and choose what they do.
Which makes for a good show.
Yeah, it's good content.
But it doesn't necessarily give you the truth.
Yeah, if you're savvy enough or to watch these shows and take notes, I mean, you're generally not a killer in the first place. You're not going to go out and there's a special type of person that's going to be like a serial killer. They fit a certain profile. They're just not going to watch some Netflix show and start killing people.
Say gotcha.
Yeah, I know how to get away with it. Yeah, I don't think
I
generally
seen
that
this in a shaman.
Yeah.
Do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really thinking you were gonna lead it somewhere like. Just because you're watching porn and he's got her upside down doesn't mean you're watching. You know, I was really expecting you to go there.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So the only other thing, like, so you guys can go into like a wrap up now, so just kind of like closing statements and all that, and then we'll just have you react to the last video. We don't have to necessarily cut it in there. We'll just use it as a piece for social, and then we'll be good to go.
Cool. All right, y'all. So I figured like we hit all the checks for today's podcast, right?
Yes.
Once again, Sage Lopez, our lovely assistant, Jess Matsuda, Ben Nadig. This is from the beach to the bar. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, you got our number, give us a call. We'll help you out.